All right, so I'm John Horn. I'm the CEO of OnRamp Wireless. It's actually the last time I will say that because we were rebranding the company, and I can't tell you too much about that because it's happening next week. But there's a lot happening in this industry, and I've had the opportunity to lead groups at T-Mobile, Rayco Wireless, and now at OnRamp. And I've kept the same core leadership team together for 13 years, and we've been able to affect major changes in this business and have done business with both of my compatriots' companies on the table over the years and with their products. But I've been pretty much a connectivity guy through the course of this, starting with T-Mobile. And what we set out to do is really simplify this business. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to launch anything, the biggest challenge is how do you get the thing off the ground, how you do it with the least amount of capital, least amount of delay. When we got in this space at T-Mobile, it took 6 to 12 months to launch a new product with a wireless carrier. 6 to 12. We were able to draw that down to a few weeks by changing the entire paradigm and how the business was managed, how the business was monitored, all the moving parts. There are actually 4 SIM form factors in the world today. 3 of them were launched by my organization at T-Mobile in trying to make life easier for the M2M and IoT business. So what has happened over the course of this time is we have tried to take all the complexity we can. And now the carriers, not by any fault of their own, because of the nature of the business that was engineered for people, are facing a big challenge. We all love having these things in our hands that go bigger, faster, better. We want the next best everything. We want 2G, 3G, 4G. We're going to want 5G in another year. And what's happening is the disparity that's coming is leaving the machine business behind. Whether it's M2M or IoT or whatever we call it, what the machines need and what people need are becoming more and more divergent with every evolution of cellular. So as we look at what's going on in the industry today, I got a bunch of circles. So, but mine are about all the different verticals that are being impacted by the technology that we all support, all of us that are sitting up at this table. Whether it's oil and gas, transportation, energy, agriculture, you name it, everything is being touched by connectivity, by being able to gather that data and the information out of that ecosystem, whatever that ecosystem happens to be. And if you can't get that data, you're going to be so far behind the curve, you won't be able to compete in anything you're doing. And we're seeing entire industries, Uber's the perfect example, being completely changed by technology and wiping out an old industry that's basically getting annihilated by change. But we're also seeing industries that are changing simple little things like monitoring how you grow chickens, that will change the entire chicken industry forever. With thousands of devices will change that industry forever. Not millions, but thousands. And you can now take a chicken and grow it instead of 16 weeks in 8 weeks, just by monitoring the environment of the chicken. So, I mean, and it really goes on from there. In California, we're talking about water management. The entire Southwest has water problems. We have to be able to get the information and the data back and forth in order to be able to have that communication. So what's happening, if you want to go to the next slide, is the machines use some data. We as humans use lots of data. And we're gearing and engineering those networks on the cellular side to give us as much data as absolutely possible. So what's happened is this greater and greater disparity. You've got the birth of the cellular industries right here in San Diego with Qualcomm. Some of the people that were involved with designing the chipset that created the cellular industry are on our board. They realize that what is happening with humans is counterintuitive what's going to happen with these billions of machines. So they created a new technology that's specifically for machines to communicate that offsets all the problems with human beings. Who's ever killed their battery on their cell phone? Anybody had that problem before? What if you could get 10-year battery life on your device? We can build a network for pennies on the dollar for what it costs on the cellular side because it's optimized for data, not for voice. This is pretty much what's happening is average in the M2M and IoT side data versus what's happening in the human side with data. You can't have the same technology support them both. It just doesn't work. Right now you've got 30 million 2G devices in the US alone. Guys like Diego love this because they got to throw all their devices away and buy new ones. right? But the guys that built the but the guys that built the ecosystem aren't too happy about that, because they basically have their whole infrastructure that they built and designed on putting a device out there and leaving it there indefinitely. They got to throw it away. And then they have to make a decision. Do I go to 3G? Well, sorry, but that's only going to be around a couple years longer. Or do I go to 4G, which is going to cost me 5 times as much and give me that much data, and all I want's this? So you have this huge disparity of what's coming. Do both. Yeah, right. So you sell 3 devices, exactly. Right? Yeah, you're not going to like what I'm about to say. So, so anyway, let's go to the next slide. So what's the challenge that we're facing here? On the network side, you got network sunsetting. The first sunset was analog. Now we're sunsetting 2G. Soon we sunset 3G. Then you've got signal penetration in the spectrum that they use on cellular. You've got challenges. We have a network running for SDG&E through all of San Diego County that gets every single meter that's underground and in a basement. There's not a cellular technology that can do that today. The next is battery life. I already mentioned that. You can put a device on a container and you can ping it a couple times a week, run it all over the country, and in 10 years that battery will still be alive. You cannot do that with cellular. Remote coverage. If you could get 200 square miles out of a cellular tower, how would your life change in connectivity? You can do that with the technology that I'm talking about. The other thing is data rounding. The cellular companies charge an awful lot. We were talking about economic dynamics earlier and what the costs are as you stack through there. One of the challenges on cellular is they add a lot of overhead into those packets so that you use more data than you actually need, and then they round up to the kilobyte, so your 5 bytes of data just costs you a kilobyte to buy. Another challenge in the space. And finally, just the overall network costs. It's about a 30-to-1 network cost on cellular versus the technology that was invented by a bunch of guys from Qualcomm that wanted to invent technology for machines. What does that technology do? Coverage. Again, 30-to-1. Where I put a tower, I can get 200 square miles of coverage in optimum conditions. Cellular will have to put 10 to 30 in that same area. Whole different dynamic. The next, the battery life. Again, because of the way it communicates, it's a completely different way of pinging the device and communicating with the device. It does not draw down the battery power. One of the things that kills this marketplace is you got to have power. And you take a lot of verticals and a lot of integrations that are happening out there today can't happen and can't happen effectively economically because they can't get power to it, or they have to have someone keep touching it. And then the network commitment. I mean, I've been a cellular guy for the vast majority of my career. No cell phone company can commit to networks for any length of time. They don't own any of it. They don't get to decide what's 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. Other guys are deciding what that is. Other companies are sunsetting. They have to get rid of 2G because they need to use the spectrum for something else. You've got Telit, one of the largest module companies in the world, has said, oh, we're not going to make 2G modules anymore, even though a lot of the world still wants 2G. So you have all these other issues that are outside the control of these entrepreneurs building these companies and creating these new solutions where the carpet's being pulled out from underneath them in connectivity. We'll be able to give 10 to 20 year network commitments for what we do in the marketplace today. So we have a new technology, and I can't say too much. Like I said, I'm sorry, because we're doing major announcements about what we're doing next week. Probably some of it will come out during the Q&A session, but we're going to really change the dynamic of how machines communicate, no matter what they are. Thanks.